Hey guys, Bobby here, and in this video we're going to go in depth on the Zhiyun Crane 2, my likes and dislikes about it, where I think it falls in the wedding cinema industry, and ultimately whether or not I think it's worth it. First and foremost, if you're thinking about buying the Crane 2, the original Crane, or any other Zhiyun product, I've partnered up with Zhiyun to offer my subscribers 10% off their purchase in its entirety. That's going to save you $75 on the Crane 2, about $50 on the original Crane, and a variety of different amounts on different Zhiyun products from Zhiyun.us. All you need to do is follow the link in the description, use the code RDM10OFF, and you'll get 10% off your purchase. I'll get a bit of a kickback as well, and we'll both benefit. If you're here for just a quick answer on whether or not it's worth it, I think it kind of comes up as a both yes and no. And really what it boils down to is what cameras you want to use, and basically if you do need the Crane 2 for either the weight or the follow focus or something like that, or if you can get by with the original Crane. After using the original Crane since it came out, I've been able to play now with the Zhiyun Crane 2 for a while, and I've got to say it is an amazing piece of gear. It falls right in line with the Zhiyun lineup of being incredibly smooth, pretty easy to use, and at a very affordable price point. I love the features that they've added on to the Crane 2. I think they're incredibly useful and really open up the doors for wedding cinematographers using a variety of different types of cameras. And I think ultimately the Crane is a great fit for weddings, being kind of that smaller form factor, whether it's the Crane 2 or the original Crane. So I quick want to get into my likes and dislikes with the Zhiyun Crane 2, then I'll get into where I think it falls in the wedding industry and ultimately whether or not it's worth it. So the first thing I love about the Zhiyun Crane 2 is, first and foremost, balancing it is so easy. I think a lot of this has to do with the weight limit, which I'm going to get into in a second, but I literally just was able to put this on, I changed a few things, and it was all lined up, ready to go. I spent a lot more time balancing the original Crane and figuring that out. So the ease of use factor there was huge for me. It might be different if you're using perhaps a larger camera or just a different camera, but it was very easy for me to set up and balance for my setup. The second thing for me, which I just mentioned, is the weight limit. They've increased it from just under 4 pounds to about 7 pounds. I think that's a huge increase, and I think that's great for the wedding cinema industry. That really allows you to use a variety of DSLRs, not just mirrorless with the Crane or with the Crane 2, which is awesome. When we switched from the Ronin-m to the original Crane, we also switched around that time, at least for the camera we were flying, from Canon to Sony, and those switches kind of went hand in hand together. We wanted to get away from the Ronin. We thought it was too big for weddings. We didn't like the footprint it had, but we couldn't fly our 5D Mark IIIs at the time, so we needed something smaller, and that was limiting due to the weight limit of the original Crane being it was 1,800 grams, but realistically you wanted more around 1,600. So the Crane 2 would theoretically allow us to move back to Canon if we wanted to. It would let you fly a 5D Mark IV. It would also, of course, let you fly like the Panasonic GH5, or like we fly the Sony a7S II or a6500. So it really kind of opens the doors to more cameras, more lens options with that weight limit. The next thing that I love about the Zhiyun Crane 2 is their inclusion of a follow focus system. Now this doesn't work with every brand of camera. It does not work with Sony to my knowledge, but it does work with Canon, and I was able to test it out with that. It's such a great addition that allows you to do some more complicated camera moves and focus pulls and stuff like that with the little wheel right here. It's very easy to use, it's very responsive, and then a lot of the other upgrades that they did just in general make life easier. The Zhiyun Crane 2 now comes with feet on the bottom. You had to purchase them separately on the original Crane. It still uses batteries that last an incredibly long time, so you're not going to need to switch them out in the middle of a shoot or anything like that. Along with the follow focus, you can now control different aspects of your camera, like your shutter, aperture, and ISO. Again, that is for specific camera types, so definitely make sure if that will work with yours or not. And then one of the other big things that it now comes with a quick release system already built into it. It does come with its own plate, which also has a lens support here if you're using a longer lens, which is great. But it does also work with the Manfrotto quick release system. It doesn't work perfectly. The plate that I use, the normal Manfrotto ones, is not quite long enough, at least for where I need it to be, to trigger the button in the back as far as locking it. You won't hear that click when you put it in, but it is locked in place, so I'm not worried about it falling off or anything like that. The other thing is, if you're using their plate, you can put it on from the front and push it back. And with the Manfrotto plate, at least the one that I'm using, I need to put it in from the back and push it forward. Not a huge deal, but it's a little bit easier to go from the front to the back. But again, not a big deal. Now I want to get into some of the things that I disliked while using it. None of them are very big things. I think overall the pros of the Zhiyun Crane 2 speak volumes, and the dislikes are really small things that are just a little bit finicky. But as far as dislikes go, the big thing that I noticed right away is that the Crane 2 is built for right-handed people. Now I'm left-handed. I would always prefer to fly, if I could, with two hands, but if I'm going to use the follow focus system, I would always have it in my left hand as opposed to my right hand, and I'd be controlling the follow focus with my right hand. And I am just not as steady, nor am I as comfortable flying it only holding it with my right hand. I don't know how possible it is for them to make this universal or switch it around. Perhaps it is possible and I don't know, but I think that's a little bit of an oversight. Now, it's not impossible. If I have the buttons facing me like I do now, and I'll turn the camera around, I can kind of hold it with two hands and still, with this hand right here, spin it. But it's a little awkward, definitely not as easy as if it was out on this side, or if I could somehow switch it around. The other big dislike that I have has to do with the quick release system. I mentioned that it does work with the Manfrotto plates, the ones that I use for everything. But again, like I said, it does require you to put it in from the back. So I have to point it down, put it in from the back to the front, instead of from the front to the back if you're using their system. And also, while I do like the switch over to these tabs as opposed to these knobs on the original Crane, this tab here, which tightens down your camera, is just a tiny bit too long with this setup at least, so it hits the bottom of my camera. I can push it through, it doesn't take too much effort, but it is scratching up the bottom of my camera a little bit. Those are really the only dislikes I had with the system. Overall it is an amazing system, and I absolutely love the entire lineup of Zhiyun products, whether it's the Crane 2 or the original Crane, which I've used forever. And as far as where it fits in the wedding industry, I think that this is really the way to go. I think it is a more entry-level stabilizer as far as the price point, as far as figuring it out, putting it together, balancing it, things like that. And it provides amazing footage. I get just as smooth footage on the original Crane that I did on the Ronin-m, and I think the Crane 2 is, if possible, even smoother. The setup is so nice and easy. It really just works. And also for the wedding industry specifically, I really like the size, and I like that you can put it down anywhere. The Ronin-m required you to bring a stand around. It was also much bigger, and I think in general as wedding cinematographers, we don't want to be up in people's faces. We don't want to take away from the day, and having smaller gear that still delivers a quality a quality image, a quality stabilization, etc., allows you to be a little more behind the scenes and get kind of those natural reactions, natural interactions, stuff like that a little bit more easily. If you have the original Crane, you're flying mirrorless and you don't see that changing in the future, especially if you're using a Sony where the follow focus isn't going to work for you, I don't know that I see a huge reason to upgrade. I think that I can get just as stable footage with the original Crane. Now on the Crane 2 description, it does say it's more stable and more responsive. So maybe it's a little bit better. I think to the naked eye, it's hard to see the difference. Both of them are incredibly stable and smooth for me. But if you are using something like a Canon, or you want to fly a bigger camera, or you're kind of pushing the weight limit with your lens as far as the original Crane goes, I think the Crane 2 is the next logical option. I think it's the best thing out there if you need that payload or you're going to utilize the follow focus or the camera settings being accessible from the joystick or anything like that. It is an absolutely amazing piece of gear. Again, it fits right in line with the Zhiyun setup, going from the original Crane and really just having, you know, the Crane 2. That's exactly what it is. It's a little bit of upgrade, some big features changed, but still delivering an amazingly high quality, smooth image from a small and affordable piece of gear. So that's my video on the Zhiyun Crane 2 for wedding cinematographers, going over some of my likes and dislikes and whether or not I think it's worth it. I hope you guys found this useful. If you are interested in purchasing one, again, you can check out the link below, use my code and save 10% on any of your Zhiyun products. If you guys have any questions, let me know in the comments below. And as always, I'd love to have you like this video, subscribe, and follow along for more videos. Thanks.